Welcome back to Sasquatch Theory. Most witnesses have one encounter they never forget. Today's guest has spent years sharing his land with something he never expected to find living there. Neil from Georgia and the creator of BigfootTalk.com purchased a rural property simply looking for peace and quiet. What he found instead was a place filled with massive game trails, unexplained structures, mysterious vocalizations, strange gifts, and footprints unlike anything he has ever seen. As the years passed, those experiences only intensified. His family heard whistles outside the house, something struck the side of their home with incredible force, apples disappeared overnight, and mysterious river rocks began appearing at his gifting areas. Eventually, Neil would witness several Sasquatch creatures with his own eyes. If you enjoy listening to Sasquatch Theory, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and if you have your own Bigfoot or cryptid encounters you would like to share with me here on the show, you can contact me directly at sasquatchtheory@outlook.com. You can also join the membership today to help support the channel and the research, and it would truly mean a lot to me. With all that being said, let's dive straight into Neil's Bigfoot encounters from the state of Georgia. All right, Neil, welcome to Sasquatch Theory. How are you doing today?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing excellent. Neil, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today. If you would, tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and your Bigfoot encounters and experiences from the very beginning, please.
Okay, sounds good. I'm Neil with BigfootTalk.com, and I grew up as a child in a different area, a different state. But I was in the woods all the time, so I learned a lot about the animals and how they act and interact with each other and things that they let others know by the sounds they make. My mom actually put a bell out in the front yard so she could call me because I was so far away she couldn't call me with her voice. She had to put a bell to let me know to come home. So back to the present, my wife about 10 years ago found the property for us to retire on. It had been abandoned for 8 to 10 years. And the initial time that they let us know that they were there, I'm going to give it abbreviated because there's a lot of detail of things that we saw and learned, but I'm going to go into an abbreviation of it to get into some interactions and sightings. So the property had been abandoned for 8 to 10 years. There were 2 streams on it. There were an old pond that had dried up. And I always wanted some property that had deer and a bunch of forest animals and things like that. I used to love animals when I was growing up. When I was growing up, I did hunt. But my dad always told me, don't shoot something unless you're going to eat it. And after I met my wife, she loved nature like I did, and there was no way she would eat anything that I shot. So that was fine with me because I just loved to watch them. Well, after we got the property, it was all grown up. There was all kind of growth that had to be cut down and bush hogged so that it could be in a good condition again. So we went and started bush hogging everything. And there was stuff there that it should be a deer haven. There should have been deer everywhere and other animals. But I just didn't see that many tracks, which amazed me because here's 2 beautiful streams, clear, beautiful water, and it's just not there. This is in North Georgia. I mean, the water's beautiful. There's no pollution in it. Everything's great, but honeysuckle, all kind of stuff growing that they like to eat, and they're just not touching. There's just not the deer here. It didn't make any sense. So all the time I wanted to retire and I wanted to grow some fruit trees, and we put some fruit trees and stuff like that. As we started bush hogging, I started seeing things that made no sense. Now in this area, there are no bear. This is in North Georgia, but in this area, there's no bear. And what I'm seeing does not match any animals that should be here. I'm seeing things that were done with hands. I'm seeing things that was done with animals that I've never been accustomed to. And I've been accustomed to deer, wild hogs, all the cougars, everything. But I'm seeing things that make no sense to me. So I'm just like, what is this? What could make this? An example of that was as we bush hog the backyard to clear it out, I get to the edge of the woods and there is a trail. Now I know every animal in the woods, but this trail, there is no animal that I know that can make this. It's incredible. This thing is at least a foot and a half wider at my shoulders, and I've got wide shoulders. I'm 6'4" with wide shoulders, and this thing is a foot and a half wider on each side. This trail is got everything on it is crushed. It is smashed and pulverized. Every limb, every stick on it is just demolished. And I'm thinking, what could have done this? I mean, if a deer goes and steps on something, they snap a branch, but they don't pulverize it. So what is doing this? And I started thinking of all the animals, and the only animal I could come up with that could do this was a pack of elephants. And they don't have elephants in Georgia in the wild. So I'm like, I don't know. It doesn't make sense. Now, when I was young, I'd learned about Bigfoot and I learned about other cryptids. And I was 50-50 that Bigfoot could live, but I thought that was all in the West Coast, California, Oregon, Washington State, Alaska, Canada. I figured if any were still alive, it would be in that area. So I never could have imagined anything like that being here. Also, on the other side of the creek, they had to bulldoze it. The banks are 8 to 12 foot high on the creek. And they had to cut through with a bulldozer to get to the other side. On the other side of the creek are 3 huge logs that are been snapped. Now, these had not been cut. There were no axe marks, no chainsaw marks, no machinery marks. They had been snapped and they were big around as my waist. 3 of them in a row that went in the cut where the bulldozer went side to side, like blocking it. That made no sense to me because the people who abandoned the property, why would they care if somebody went to that side? Why would they put something on there? And how would they do this? How would they break this? This looked like it looked like something incredible. It just snapped it and then just left them there. I mean, there's no Incredible Hulks around here that I know about that could have done it. So it made no sense. And there were no root holes. There was nothing that I could see on either side where it came from. Then, after I started getting the fruit trees up, I started seeing fruit as it gets ripe, peaches, figs, persimmons. As soon as it started getting ripe, it would just disappear. I mean, it would just go like the peach trees. I planted the peach trees and put netting around it, deer netting around it with T-posts that was over 6 foot tall. It was some of these peaches were 10 to 12 foot up. And I put fabric on the ground to stop it so that if anything fell on the ground, I could pick it up and it wouldn't rot. They were just gone. The middle of the week, I would tell the family, I would say, look, we're going to pick some peaches this weekend because there's some ready. And so just plan on, spending some time to help me pick the peaches because I need somebody to hold the ladder as I'm pulling the peaches down. Saturday, they were all gone. And I'm not talking about some left that weren't ripe. They all would be gone. There were none on the fabric on the ground. There were none. There was nothing showing anything eating it. Like when some rodents and stuff eat some stuff, you'll see some peels or some bits and pieces of nothing. It was all gone. Made no sense. I'm like, nobody in Georgia is going to go behind somebody's house, pick peaches where they could be seen out the back window, and they're not going to risk their life for that. In Georgia, you got guns and people will shoot you if you trespass. Nobody would do that. So it made no sense. The persimmons, I went and looked and the persimmons were gone. It has netting around it. Deer couldn't get to it either, but it had been twisted. They weren't pulled off. They were twisted until it snapped off. You could see where the limb had just been twisted over and over until it snapped. I'm like, you got to have hands to do this. You can't just, an animal would bite through it, boot through the thing. They're not going to twist it till it snaps off. So in Christmas of 2019, my kids bought me a cutout of a Bigfoot for Christmas to put in the backyard, a life-size cutout. I put it off the back porch into the edge of the woods so that I could see it from the back porch. 2 weeks later, there was whistlings at 1 o'clock in the morning while my wife was on the back porch. 4 whistles. The dogs are going crazy, louder than anything she ever heard. I was asleep. She woke me up. I went out there and didn't hear anything, but she described it to me. It didn't match any animal. I'd heard a female matriarchal doe one time whistle, but this thing was within 5 yards of the dog pen. They would never do that. There's other things I heard that didn't make sense. One night I heard a dog bark, but it was strange because it had 2 tones to it. It had a bass that sounded very similar to a alligator mating, deep vibration type bass, but then it also had some tenor to the top, some high. There's no animal that could do that. And we had a shed that the dogs sleep in. And as soon as it would, on the second howl, second bark, it ran out to check it out and they all started looking that way and barking like crazy. Never heard anything like that. No animal's got 2 tones that I know about. No person can make 2 tones at the same time. Weird. Just didn't make sense. Then 2 weeks after the whistling, they hit the side of the house of our bedroom. They hit it so hard the whole house shook. I ruled out everything that could have caused it. Tree falling, a jet going by making a sonic boom, an earthquake. The next day I saw where the grass had been matted down and something hit 9 to 10 foot up on the house. As a matter of fact, later on, we had somebody come and look at the property, and they found that the bricks had been cracked on one window all the way from one corner up to the roof. That's how hard the hit was. So I decided that I was going to figure out what's going on because nothing is making sense to me. So I called a gentleman named David Becerra up at Expedition Bigfoot. I'd met him one time when I went up there to the museum in Blue Ridge, Georgia. And I told him everything he was going on. He asked me a whole bunch of questions. And I said, "What do you think?" He said, "I think you have a Bigfoot." And I'm like, "What?" But the reason I called him is I'd gone online and found a BFRO report, and the position of that report with the roads and all the locations matched very close to here if it wasn't here. And I wanted to find out if he knew somebody in the BFRO to find out what that address was, to find out if it was possible. And he said that they didn't know where they were anymore, but From everything he heard, he thought it was a Bigfoot. And I said, so what does this mean? He said, they're letting you know they are there, and they letting you know they want to coexist with you. And I'm going crazy now. How can somebody, he's very intelligent. If there's an expert, he would be an expert, even though I don't believe there's any true expert because nobody knows exactly what they are. So I kind of asked him, I said, how do you know that? What do you mean they want to coexist with us? He said, then he asked some more question. Have you had any trees knocked down over your road to stop you from going down it? No. Have you heard any growls coming from the woods late at night? No. Have you had your house hit several times 2 or 3 nights a week? No. Have you had anything hitting your barn or your roof like rocks or sticks, like being thrown on it? No. He said if they didn't want you there, that's what they would be doing. Now, I was never the type person to where I believe that everything people tell me. I'll go by this theory, trust but verify. So I started thinking, how can I prove that we actually have a Bigfoot here? I had not seen any prints. I had not, but I've seen all this other stuff that I know some of it has to have hands. So there's no books about how to find out if they're here or learn from them. There's nothing written on that. So I decided on that trail that everything had been smushed, had to be, if there was a Bigfoot, that would have to be their trail. And it looked like it was used regularly, like every night or every other night. So I went down, put 2 nails in there without a head, stuck red delicious apples on it. I was going to rake until I got to the dirt, but as I was raking, it got to some soft, mushy leaf debris and mossy type stuff underneath it. So I just left that because if something steps on that, I'll be able to see the outline of a footprint. And sure enough, the next day I go, and on the way down there, I can tell the apples are gone. Before I get there, I can see they're gone. I'm like, yes, well, something got them. So, and it was as high up as I could reach. So it couldn't have been anything from the ground to get it that's shorter than me. I go look, and sure enough, on the ground is the outline of a human shaped footprint, 16 to 16 and a half inches long and wider than a normal human print. It looked like it was probably 7 to 8 inches wide. I said, okay, so that's what we do have. So you get into this stuff and you start thinking, what in the world is going on? You know, how can I learn about these things? Because nobody really knows about them. And I start thinking, I've got to interact with them. I've got to see what I can do. Now, at the time, I thought they were just a regular animal like any other forest animal. But I learned in a short period of time, they're not. Something amazing happened. So I'm putting apples down there, trying to figure out what I need to do. How can I draw them out? How can I learn about them? And I was putting 2 apples up there. And in my head, I was looking around thinking, I need to put more apples out here because if they're as big as people say they are, they're going to want more than 2 apples. So I went and got a ladder. I put 2 more nails up there so I could get 4 apples. But it got real tiring after a time because I'd have to take a ladder down there, put it into unstable ground to get 4 apples up there. Let me see if there's anywhere else I can put some nearby. There really wasn't. So in my head, I'm thinking, I wish that there was a place that I could put more of my apples. The next time I go down there, which would have been 3 days later, The apples were gone, but on the other side of the fence, there was a vine that came out of the ground, went horizontal to the ground, and then went up into a tree. The horizontal part had 4 sticks stuck in the ground at different angles and made a teepee shape. They all had been snapped off at the top at the same level. And I said, hey, I can put one right here. It covers the apple 3/4 of the apple. I can see if they're going to find this because it was a little bit behind where the other stuff was and see if they can find it. So, and it fit perfectly on top. I mean, if you think about the top of a teepee, they're going in different directions. There's 4 of them. It makes a perfect cup. So that was Saturday that I put that down there. It goes Sunday. It's gone. The 2 on the tree are gone. I said, hey, they're pretty smart because they found that right away. Then all of a sudden, as I put 2 back on the tree and 1 right there, I look to the left and there is another one made the same way with off of a tree limb, off of a brush. It had been stuck in 4 different directions, making a teepee shape on top. And I'm like, wait a second, I know that wasn't there. So I started looking at them and I started checking them out, and I started realizing the sticks that are in the ground are not from any trees right here. Not only that, but they were stuck in the ground with a sharp end, 3 to 4 inches, but they were broke off at the top at the same height. And I'm like, this had to be stuck in the ground and snapped off after at the top to make it the same height. They had to have made this for me to put an apple. You know, did they see me looking around to see if I could find a place to put an apple or what? And at first I started getting angry. I started thinking, here I am trying to see how smart they are. Can they find an apple? And I put an apple right where they wanted me to put an apple. So who is the smart one here, me or them? It was incredible. I'm just like, these things are much smarter than I ever thought they would be. No other animal could do something like that, could or would do something like that. So I said, okay, so let's start trying to interact with them. I heard they like blue marbles on a TV show. I said, I'm going to gift them some blue marbles. We have stump feeders we put out to feed the deer to attract more deer to the property. We also planted clover and a lot of other stuff out there for it. And the blue marbles I put out on a Saturday, and as a gift for them, we go back Sunday and we put 9 or 10 marbles on. It's got little circles on top of the stump feeder so they wouldn't roll off. We go back and they're gone. All the blue marbles are gone. So I went and told my wife, I said, hey, all the blue marbles are gone. She goes, I want to see. So we drive down there. As we're looking on the top, we see that they're all gone. And she goes, looking around, we're looking around, they're not on the ground. There's nothing on the ground. They're just gone. The blue marbles are gone. As we started going on the trail, which makes a U shape, on the right side, there was a huge river boulder. My wife goes, where did that come from? Now she does the mowing, thank goodness. And I bought her a real nice zero turn so she could mow everything. And she knows everything that's in the yard. On the other side of the trail is another river rock that's about 40 to 50 pounds, but it's a different type of river rock. She goes, where did these come from? I said, I have no idea. I have no idea where those came from. So at first, I didn't think there could be a gift because I'd always heard a gift would be flowers or bones or feathers or flowers, something like that. So 2 weeks later, we're coming back from my mom's house. My wife's asleep, and my mind just keeps going thinking about this over and over and over. And I started thinking, marbles are hard like a rock. They are smooth like a river boulder. Maybe that was a gift. So we got home late Sunday night. Monday morning, I get out there, jump on the side by side. I cut through the trees to get there real quick because I'm already going to be a little bit late for work, but I've got to know. I want to look at them more. I get down there and they're gone. Both of them are not there. I'm like, what the heck? I mean, the banks of the creek is 8 to 12 foot steep. I mean, and then these things are heavy. How did they get here? What happened to them? As I start riding up the trail by one of the peace trees they like the most, the big one is right there where she had mowed the previous weekend, sitting by that peace tree. This is about 50 to 60 yards away from where it was. It had been moved. It had been moved from where it was up there, right next to the trail in clear sight to make sure that we knew it was moved. On the other side of the U, we had built a platform for the kids to park. We had to bring in hundreds of loads of dirt. The other rock was on one side of the trail over there, and another one just like it on the other side of the trail. So not only had the other one been moved, but another river rock just like it was on the other side. I'm like, holy cow, this is a gift. So I started thinking, if I was to give somebody a gift and they were to give me a gift back, I would need to take it to show them that I accept their gift and want to be friends with them. So I went and picked up the rocks the big boulders, and put them by our steps off the back porch to let them know that we accepted their gift. And I really think that had a lot to do with us going on and building a relationship with this clan. I think if I had not accepted those, that it would have either delayed or stopped building the relationship based on trust. And, they trust us. They know that we're not going to hurt them. So then a couple of people came to the property. Scott and Sheila Granger. They own an expedition company up there for Bigfoot, and also do trout fishing called Squatch Fishing Outfitters. Duh, I can't even talk today. So they came down and started looking. They found prints, they found tree breaks, they found limb breaks, stuff's tied all together. They said, yes, you have them here, and you've had them. They've been here for a long, long time. Because some of the branch breaks on the trees were really, really old. And so they've been done in 8 to 10 years or more earlier. So I said, okay. I actually went on an expedition with them. And one thing, I'm jumping ahead of myself, but I'll let you know that if you're in an area and you're on a habitation site with them, somehow at other locations, they will show themselves to you or let you know they're there. The very first night that we were there, I was in a tent and my foot was touching the fin. And I had my shoes on because it was really cold that night. And being 6'4", it's hard to find a blanket that covers your feet. So I left my shoes on. It was touching the back of the tent. All of a sudden, I'm awakened because my foot is getting pushed back. I wake up and I'm like, what is this? And as I'm looking down there to where my feet are, All of a sudden, I see my foot being pushed back again and then let go. Something had pushed the back of the tent to push my foot backwards to let me know that it was there. Now, I could not see an outline of anything because there were no lights on that side of the tent that could have backlit the creature that was there doing it. But I'd had enough interactions at that time to know what did it. So, getting back to some of the stuff I did, there is no book that tells you how to create a relationship with Bigfoot or these creatures. And Lord knows we've made a lot of mistakes doing it. But what I did next is I took the blue marbles and I made a marble plate. I took a glass plate, put really white sand in it, and made a smiley face with blue marbles. My thoughts were to get them to interact with me back and forth. I'll make a smiley face and maybe see if they do something with it. So what happened was the marbles, after we put it down there, a couple of days later, we went back, all the marbles were pulled to the bottom of the plate. And where this plate was, and the way we put it in the sand, there's no way wind could blow it. It was perfectly level. They were purposely pulled to the bottom of the plate. But yet I couldn't see fingertips or anything like that. I thought I saw one or two, but it wasn't enough to prove anything to me. So we made a smiley face again. Go back down there. They're pulled to the bottom of the plate. I said, it doesn't make sense to me. We make a smiley face again. They're pulled to the bottom of the plate. We do it one more time. It's pulled to the bottom of the plate again. And I said, heck with this. This isn't working. I want to interact with them and see if we can try to interact with each other. So I just left them at the bottom of the plate. 2 weeks later, we go back down there to where the marble plate is. There was a smiley face. They had been playing a game with me and moving them to the bottom of the plate. And when I quit playing, they wanted to actually play some more, so they made a smiley face. So I started trying different things. I made a square out of the marbles. It had 3 on top, 3 on bottom, and 1 on each side, so that there were 8 marbles making this square. And I was like, let's see what they do with this. All of a sudden, when we go down there again the next time, they had taken that square and made a smiley face. But the way they did it was uniquely not human-like. They think different. They took the one, the middle of the top, slid it down to make a nose. They took the 2 on each side in the middle, slid them out, and 1 in the middle of the bottom slid it down a little bit to make a face. In 4 moves, they made a smiley face out of a square. I'm like, holy cow, this is crazy. A person would just go and take and move them all themselves, move every one of them to make a smiley face. They made a smiley face out of it in 4 moves. So I started making different designs. Sometimes they would make a smiley face. Sometimes they would make different shapes and stuff, which really didn't have a meaning to me, but it may have had a meaning to them. Later on, I started realizing and found out that they understood I was trying to interact with them. And I'll tell you what's happened. And this was crazy. So our bathroom on the bedroom is adjacent to the back porch. And the dogs would always give away the Bigfoot when they come into the yard. They would always start barking like crazy. So when I would hear them barking outside and I would go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, I would crack the door open and listen to see if I hear a howl, a whoop, tree knock, anything. But that night, the dogs where they were barking was in the back of the backyard, about where the Bigfoot cutout was. It was moving closer and closer and closer to the deck. Now, I started thinking in my head, maybe it's some coyotes or deer, because the trail is up there that goes to a deer feeder. So I, at the time, was not thinking Bigfoot, even though I did think it was possibly a Bigfoot. I kept ruling it out. The doors opened. All of a sudden, something hits the back porch so hard, the whole back porch shook. The bathroom shook. To me, I was startled by it. I was not scared because I knew then exactly what it was. But I slammed the door closed. I did not want to, that was just too close. And the power that it did to hit the back porch. But something was really weird about it. What was weird was, I've heard about them throwing rocks, but I didn't hear anything skipping or sliding on the back porch. It was just a rock slammed on the back porch. And I knew that sound. I used to, as a kid, throw up rocks and hit them with a stick. I know the sound of a rock hitting wood. I go out there the next morning and you could see where a rock was slammed down on the porch. Luckily, it didn't break the porch because it was right on top of where the support beam is underneath it. But it dented it in, and you could see some of the dirt and stuff off the rock where it hit. That confused me. So by this time, I'd made friends with Scott and Sheila. I called Scott, told him what happened, and he said, yeah, it sounds like to me there was an individual that was going hunting, because a lot of times they will carry a rock. They'll carry a rock so they can hit a raccoon in a tree, something on the ground to stun it to go get it. So that's not uncommon. So I'm like, okay, that must be what happened, because there was nothing, no rocks back there or anything. And I didn't hear it at all. So the next time I go down to the marble plate, something amazing and incredible happened. Right where it was standing, I even took a picture of it, the house from where it would have been standing. The marble plate had a picture of a house that looked exactly like the picture I took. And beside the stump feeder, where it was on top of, was a throwing rock. Now, this rock was not there before. And what's incredible about this rock, it looks like you can see where fingers have indented the rock from it being squeezed. I don't know if it was or not. No way I can prove it. But there was a picture of the house. They were letting me know it was them that hit that, and they left me a throwing rock as a gift back to us, which of course I took. So we started doing all kinds of stuff. We started putting food out for them, which we shouldn't have done. We have not had any bad interactions because of it, but knowing then what I know now, I would not have done that. But I learned a lot from it. I put a jar of peanut butter down there, and the jar got ripped, like and peeled down like a banana to get the peanut butter out of the bottom of it. And it had to be a small one because we had made a gifting station, and it was underneath it where whatever was down there had to be shorter than 4 foot. But it had been just ripped down. Now, I've gone on expeditions, I've gone on conventions, I've carried a peanut butter jar. No one yet has ripped it down even once. And this thing was peeled down like a banana to get to the bottom. No teeth marks, no cut marks, nothing showing, no plier marks, nothing showing it was done with anything except a finger. It was crazy. So I'm learning more and more, but I hadn't seen one yet. All of a sudden one day, and I started asking them to let me see what they look like. You know, something had happened previous to that to let me know that they can understand what we're saying. I guess I better go into that right now. My wife and I was at the pond that we filled back up and restocked with fish. And they would love to step in and out of the pond. In the mature female print, where she stepped out of the pond, picked up all the leaves, but the ground is so hard it doesn't indent it. So taking a picture doesn't come out good because you can't see depth perception with a phone camera. So I told my wife, I said, I wish they would make a better print for us so it would give us a better picture. All of a sudden, there was a a limb branch snap behind a hill down by the pond. Now, I can tell the difference when they do it and something's natural. And I'll go into that briefly just so you can understand how I can tell. I told my wife, I said, I guess they got the message. She just laughed and said, yeah, I guess we did. The middle of the week, I have to take the trash out to the road. And if I'm going to do anything at the gifting station or anything, I do it on that day. I go down to the gifting station, and right next to it is her footprint pressed into the ground, the hard ground that I've never made an indentation into. And there was marble, and this is another whole story altogether. They took the marble plate, and the gifting station has a little slot in the middle. I asked them if they could understand me to do something with a marble plate. Well, they tipped the marble plate up and let it fall in the hole in the middle of it. So all the marbles had dirt all over it. But it left its print there, cleaned off a marble, and put on the footprint to make sure I could see it, as if to say, here's your print. My wife saw it and she goes, that's incredible. That's crazy. But we started trust, building a relationship based on trust and respect. And what started to happen is when we would do something they didn't like, they would let us know. And I'll go into a way that happened. You can see how that was done. But as we build up this relationship, they quit hiding everything. They quit hiding their footprints that I'd never seen before. I was not looking for them, but I was looking for deer prints. So I thought I should have seen one and never did. So anyway, I could keep up with them. The original family had four. It had a huge male that would come and go. He was not there all the time. His print was 19 to 19 and a half inches long and 10 and a half inches wide. The mature female at that time was 13 and a half inches long, 8 inches wide. Then there was a juvenile that was about 9.5 inches long, but it was real narrow. And what was weird about that one was it only had 4 toes. And it wasn't like a toe was cut off or broken. They were normal position, but it was side to side on the foot. I don't know if that is from one that's got a birth defect or if it's from inbreeding. I don't know. I also have seen one later on that had 6 toes. And again, I don't know what causes that. So, and then there was a little one, a young one, that was about 6.5 inches long. So there were 4 of them. And I could keep up with their movements because they wouldn't hide their prints. The mom loved to go in the pond. I guess she had her own swimming pool where she could eat out of at the same time. But let me go back. I got a little bit off track. We were eating one Saturday, and we have a bay window, a curved bay window with a table right there. And as we're eating at the bay window, I look down the hill and I see something black squatting down in the middle of our trail, solid black. Now, when I call something a sighting, I'm very strict on what I call a sighting. I have to see hair or a face and know 100% is no other animal. And so far, I've had 4 meet that parameter. Now, I've got 3 more that go to 90%, but I'll tell about some of those later. Anyway, I started talking to everybody at the table, and I said, I think there's a Bigfoot watching us down there. And they looked and they looked and they said, oh, it's just a stump. I said, that's in the middle of our trail. There is no stump that's black in the middle of our trail. And I started watching it and staring at it. I could see its head. I could see its shoulders, but it was squatting down and it wasn't moving. And what was amazing, each of my sightings, I found something that was amazing about it. This one in particular was a juvenile. It had trap muscles that was huge on top of its shoulders. It was so big, if you related it to a person, it would have gone, it seemed like it went on to the end of the shoulders and went up to the bottom of where our ears were, or maybe a little higher, which made it appear as if it didn't have a neck, but it was solid black. And I stared at it and stared at it and stared at it, but you could see clearly the head, the shoulders, and I even saw an arm move a little bit. And I said, that's a Bigfoot. Now, granted, like everybody else, you do some stupid stuff that drives you crazy. 5 yards from where I am, we have binoculars in a drawer. I didn't even think about going getting it because I wanted to keep my eye on it. When everybody started getting up, and I said, mark where you're sitting, where that is on the window behind you. I said, so when we leave this table, it's going to be gone when you get back. So everybody was taking their plates, putting it in there. I was getting seconds. Come back. It's gone. It's not there. I said, told you. And I said, now look and see where it is. Tell me if it's still there. They said, no, there's nothing there. So my wife and I, after we ate, drove on the side by side down there, and sure enough, you could see the prints of where it was squatting and it going into the woods, the human shaped footprints. And it was solid black. And again, we don't have any bear here. So it couldn't be mistaken for a black bear. That was the first sighting we had. Then I mentioned earlier about when you're at a habitation site or cohabitation site, they somehow mark you so at other locations they let you see them or do something to let you know they're there. A tree knock, a whoop, something. So we had a family reunion we set up in LaGrange, Georgia. And there were a lot of people coming there. And the way the house was, on one side, it looked like a one-story house, but it went steeply down to a lake. And underneath on the back side, they had another floor that went underneath it. And it has a deck up there on the back side of it with a picnic table up there. And my job was to go ahead and cook 2 Boston butts. So I would go down the steps, had 2 Boston butts cooking on the smoker, and I was sitting up at the picnic table talking to somebody. I was facing the woods where the smoke was going. They were facing the other direction. And I would watch the smoke. And so when it got less, I would then go and put more lump coal or wood on it so to keep the temperature up to keep it cooking. Well, all of a sudden I was looking at the smoke and I saw something move at the edge of the woods. And I always look for something that's horizontal, like the back of a deer, because something horizontal to the ground is not natural. But what I see moving is vertical. It's standing up. I saw a Bigfoot peeking from around a huge pine tree. I can see its shoulder, half of its chest, its head, its leg, and it had its hand around the pine tree on the side where I could see it. The hand was a dark tan, and it was huge. It looked like a catcher's mitt. It was so big. The forearm was, I don't know if people remember Steve Garvey that used to play baseball for the Dodgers, had these huge forearms, Popeye-like forearms. It had huge forearms. But the color of the hair was different. The color of this hair was, I guess you would say, it was between pine straw colored and the orange color of an orangutan. It was in the middle of that, a little more on the orange side. And the hair was hanging down from the arm. And the movement that I saw was due to the wind blowing, was blowing the hair underneath the arm. That's the movement that I caught. And it was amazing because I could see its face, I could see its chest, which I believe was a male because it didn't have mammary glands like females do. And it was huge. I'd seen people that were 6 foot walk by that tree, and this thing was head and shoulders above that. So I'm estimating that it was 7 to 7.5 foot. And I was looking at it for 2 to 3 minutes, just staring. And I was noticing it was staring at me. And then it would stare at the smoker. And then it would stare back at me. Now, I'm not saying anything to the guy that's looking the other way, because I'm just astonished and amazed at what I'm seeing. And I'm trying to take everything in that I can. So then I decided that it must be drawn in by the smell of the Boston buzz. All of a sudden, my phone made a noise to let me know that I had a text message. So I looked down real quick, and it was a junk mail. I looked back up, and it was gone. I could not figure out how anything could disappear that quick, but it was not there. It was totally gone. So then I sure wasn't going to tell anybody. How am I going to explain how this thing disappeared that quick? The next day, after we got done, my wife and I are cleaning up the house, and we were supposed to be out by 11, and I hate to be out late. About 11:05, she wants one more cup of coffee. So we go off to the back porch that's on the upper level where I've been sitting when I watched it. And we were just talking, and I just told her, I said, babe, I don't know what's going on. I think I've gone Bigfoot crazy. She goes, what? What do you mean? So I told her the whole story. Now, over there in front of that tree is a road where people would walk down, had gravel on it, where people would walk down to the pond to fish. My wife said, did you see the message I sent you yesterday? I said, what message? She said, I sent you a text message yesterday. She said, look at it. So I haven't been looking at any text messages at all. We had so many people there. We were all busy talking and catching up on everything. She had taken a picture of a huge footprint that had pressed down the gravel in the road, and she had wrote, Bigfoot is here. That was crazy. I'd never seen it. I didn't know it. I had actually, in my mind, ruled it off. Just thought I was just going crazy because nothing can disappear that quick. That footprint was within 5 yards of where it was standing behind that tree. It was crazy. So I did call somebody and tell them about that sighting. And it was funny because they're like, that's awful close to the city. I said, well, I'm just telling you what I saw. I don't know if they believed it or not, but I told them the exact location, the exact description of it, which it was different than the one that I see, was the one that I saw here at that time. A couple of months later, she texts me back. She says, hey, I just wanted to let you know, I just had another witness call me from LaGrange. And when I plotted on the map of where that is, it was 1,000 yards from where you saw yours. I said, so you didn't believe me? And she goes, no, I believed you. It just was close to the town. She said, but that other one was different. It looked different, but it was 1,000 yards away from where yours was. I said, that's crazy. Now, those woods went to a big lake in LaGrange. A year and a half later, I went fishing. My wife's dad was retiring. So we took him fishing out there and hired a guide. He was known to catch a lot of crappie and had fish attractors and stuff. And we were going to have a bunch of people over to celebrate the retirement. So we had 6 people in there catching crappie. And as we're moving around the lake, I see this island. And I thought in my head, I wonder if there's any Bigfoot on these islands. Nothing happened. Of course, I could see through that island. We go and we get to another fish attractant spot, which is nothing more than a bunch of Christmas trees thrown down to the bottom where they go into the Christmas trees. And I was looking, this island was bigger. And I wondered in my head again, I wonder if there's any Bigfoot on that island. All of a sudden, I heard a tree knock really loud. I looked out there and I'm like, I've heard that before. I know tree knocks. The guy next to me, I said, did you hear that? He said, yeah, I did. What he does is during disasters or storms, they cut down trees and stuff all the time. So I asked him, I said, have you ever heard anything like that before? He said, no, I've never heard anything like it. He said it sounded like something had a huge wooden bat and it hit a hardwood tree as hard as it could. I said, yeah. So the guide, I turned to the guide and said, do any people live on these islands? And he goes, no, they're not allowed to. He said, now on the other side of the island, somebody could be over there having a picnic on the shore or something like that. He said, but we're going to go over there in a minute. Went over there and there were no signs of anybody being on the island at all. Now we go by another small island that you could see through most of it. I did the same thing in my head, nothing happened. But then we went by a larger island that was bigger than the other ones put together. I did the same thing. Now, on that one, there were two knocks at one spot. There was one knock on another spot. The guy next to me, he's freaking out. He's going, did you hear that? I said, yeah. I said, what do you think it is? He said, I have no idea. It matches no animals I've ever heard. Whatever did it has to have hands. I said, is it a woodpecker? I knew what it was. He said, there's no way that's a woodpecker. And so I said, I know what it is. And I kind of told him, and he goes, they're not real. I said, yes, they are. And he came to the house a couple of times after that and actually saw some prints and stuff like that. And he was amazed. He said, you know what you're talking about? I said, yeah, I've heard it a lot. So they were letting me know that they were there. Then my daughter bought a house nearby where I live, but a different location where there's other houses around. The first time I go on her back porch, she walks out there with me to show it to me. Right behind her house, there's 3 tree knocks. She goes, really, Dad? You had to bring them here too? I said, I didn't bring them here. I said, they were already here. They just wasn't letting you know. Out of the 5 times I've gone on that back porch, 3 of the 5 times I've heard tree knocks coming off it. So they're letting me know that they were there. And it's crazy how that kind of stuff happens. So I've gone through 2 of the sightings. The third sighting was unique also. In our front field that we had bush hogged, our driveway goes down the other side of it. I took my mom to the doctor one afternoon. On the way back, I saw something flash in the woods on the other side, sort of like a gun barrel would shine. I always have my window down to hear what's going on around. And I took and slowed down, took my phone and blew up the picture because I could see something black outlined in those woods that was the shape of a person standing up. And 2 or 3 trees back, but in the open. So when I got to the house, I blew the picture up. And sure enough, there was a young Bigfoot there that was watching me. They have a way to watch you and pattern you. And when something is not right, if the pattern is off, they're going to try to watch you and figure out what's going on. So I never come home at that time. And because I did, it was there at the edge of the trees watching me. Now, that one I do not call a sighting because I had to blow the picture up to see it, it didn't meet my parameters to call it a sighting. But several months later, they started coming to the bay window and looking in the window watching TV. And one night, I fell asleep watching a movie. We have a little Yorkie called Cookie. And I wake up and he's standing up on the edge of the chair, staring at the window, not making a sound, just frozen, staring at the window. And I'm like, what are you doing? And I peek over my chair and look, and there is the face that I saw looking in the window straight at me. Now, this face was a young one, and his face was round, didn't have hair on it, but it was a unique color. It was light tan with jet black hair on the outsides of it. And it was kind of, the way I would describe it is, it was if somebody put gel in their hair and moved their hair back. Because it wasn't that, didn't appear to be that long, but the contrast between that light tan and that jet black, it just stood out. Not only that, but it was shiny. It was shiny as if you armor-alled the dashboard in your car. It shined like that. And I thought that was amazing. I'm like, this is incredible because the contrast, how can you not see these things, in the woods? But I realized that 2 to 3 weeks later that we were going to have relatives come and some of them were going to be sleeping in that room. So I knew at that time that if I went and communicated with them, they understood what I was saying. So I went on the back porch and said, I don't look in y'all's bedroom at night. I don't want y'all looking in our windows at night. And they had actually given us some gifts. They've been doing it for a while. I'd seen their footprints. They gave us some beautiful gifts on the banister of the back porch. And the reason why that one was in the front window where I could see it is there was another one in the back window. So there were two looking through watching the TV. But they never have been looking in that window again. Crazy. So they understood and were abiding by our request. Now, I'll give you an example of something that we did they didn't want us to do and how they let us know. Down by the pond that we refilled, there was an old open-sided barn. In that barn was the power switch to turn the pump on and off. What we did was we took water out of the spring and pumped into the pond to refill it because the streams that had filled it up had been blocked by roots of trees. So instead of destroying those trees or using dynamite to open it back up, we decided just to pump water from the creek into the pond. Then the overflow would go back into the creek. Well, the pump would get stopped up if there was a bad storm. And I had a guy that would help me out doing things around the house. So the pump was stopped up. I called him to come and go ahead and fix it so we could get it running again. He called me and said, hey, I can't get to the power to shut it off. And if I can't shut off the power, I can't do it. I said, why? He says, there's thousands of these bees or something coming out of the ground. I said, what? There's sawdust on the ground. They used to make furniture. I would have seen it. He said, I don't know, but there was a blue tarp under the sawdust that has been pulled back and there's a hole underneath of it the size of a huge bowling ball. I said, that's crazy. I said, describe them to me. He said, they're yellow. They're yellow and black, and there's bunches of them. And in my mind, I'm thinking it's a yellow jacket, because yellow jackets make holes in the ground and come at you and get you. I said, well, go get some poison and some of the poison spray and kill them, and so we can go ahead and shut the power off, which he did. The next week, halfway through in the week, 2 trees were pushed into our pond that were 40 foot tall. I'm like, what in the world? I went and looked through the trees. We had tried to do something to get rid of those trees, and it couldn't do anything. But here, both of them are pushed into the pond. I said, wait a second. I know what did this, but why did they do this? So I go look in the open-sided barn. You could actually see where the blue tarp had been stretched from hands really wide, pulled back. And I said, I wonder. I go close to the hole and look in it, and there was that hole and another hole behind it. I shined a light in it, and there it was. It was a piece of a honeycomb. That wasn't yellow jackets. That was honeybees. And one of them had pulled that tar back. They'd been there for a long, long time and knew it was there. Pulled the tar back, grabbed the honeycomb, went to eat it, and we had just killed their honey production. And they were upset about it. They would let us know they were upset. They didn't hit the house or anything like that, but they pushed those trees in the pond to let us know. Now, if we hadn't killed them, those honeybees would have gone and made a location somewhere else in a log or a hole in the tree. So they still could have got honey. It would be a different site. But we had killed their honey production. But they let us know that we had messed up. So that's ways that they were showing us stuff that they didn't want us to do. We learned a lot about them. At first, we had a family group of 4, but then things changed. All of a sudden, the trails that were in the woods were getting remarked. And I've learned that when they mark trails, they mark it with light colored branches. And they can do it in many different ways. They can do it by leaning up against a tree, pointing the direction of the trail. They can do it by stripping the bark off and putting it on the ground, make it a lighter color. They evidently can see lighter colors better at night. So when they're walking around at night, they can locate it and tell where they're going. Somewhere, they found some white PVC pipes, 10 foot long. Down by the gifting station, their big trail is down there. They put 2 10-foot white PVC pipes, one pointing towards the big trail, one pointing towards the gifting station. It was letting them know that this is here and that's there. It was pointing them out. But I was thinking, I don't understand. They've been here for years. Why would they need to do this? Not only that, but they were marking danger with it. They broke one of the PVC pipes, put it in a bush, and when I went and kind of bent over to see what it was doing, it was pointing at a hornet's nest. So not only were they marking the trails, they were marking danger. They had also taken some limbs and put on the edge of our pond that was real light in color, because they made the pond with a bulldozer, and it was a drop off of about 3 to 4 feet. So it would be quite a drop off if they didn't know it was there. All of a sudden, I started seeing a lot of different prints. I'm seeing 2 to 3 babies and 3 to 4 juveniles. The mom is still there. The big male still comes and goes. He's not there all the time. But I'm like, they're marking these trails. We've got new ones here. What's going on? This is different. So I called Scott again and asked him about it. And he said, it sounds like they have made your place a nursery site. Now, I didn't know what a nursery site was. He said that they will make nursery sites at different places. When they feel it's safe, they will go and make a nursery site for mothers that have newborns that aren't in a safe area. They will put them in a nursery site that's safer and then come get them after they get a little bit older. I said, that's crazy. But yet here it was. Every baby had a juvenile footprint with it, like an escort. There was always an extra juvenile as a day watcher or one to fill in or whatever, but they would put a baby and a juvenile would always be with each other. The tracks would be side by side. And I'm thinking, that is crazy. We do have a nursery site. And every year, as long as the nursery site was there, every year they would remark the trails for the new group that was coming in. The babies, here's some information that we learned. Out of 11 babies we've seen, 9 of the 11 have been born, or I started seeing their footprints first from 4 inches to 4.5 inches from the last week of March to the first week of May in that time zone. Now, we have seen 2 more, one the first week of December and one the third week of October. But the majority of them were between that time period, almost like they had a regular mating season like a deer. But yet the 2 in the different times means they can mate at other times. But it was just unique that 9 out of 11 was during that time zone. Now I'm going to tell you a story. Not a story, it's just an interaction that we had about the big male. Something we learned about the big male. The big male is very protective of the family group. Very protective. Even though that they want to coexist with us, if his job is to protect them, then he doesn't want you to be around them. And I'll give you an example of that. The male, a patterned male, he would be there for 2 to 3 weeks when the matriarchal mom had a baby of her own. He would be there for 2 to 3 weeks. He would also be back a week during the time that would be considered mating season. Then there would also be a time where all the adults left for 1 to 3 weeks in the fall that was corresponded to when the apples got ripe and the other fruits got ripe and vegetables at the end of the summer just prior to winter. And I don't know exactly what they're doing, but I'm imagining they're going eating all the apples and stuff they can to build up energy for the winter. Now, our group here is here year round. They don't migrate, even though there are migrating groups that move through. And when they do, it's like crazy sounds because the ones that are there are making sure that the ones moving through don't stop, keep moving. It's like a Jurassic Park sound going on, but you never can tell when it's going to happen. But when you hear one, you know it. But one day, early on, it was the second week of April. I was stressed out. It was about dark. And I get on the side by side and go to the pond. And I call this one of my Jurassic Parks moments. As I'm sitting in the side by side behind a hill, I hear thunderous footprints. Boom, boom, boom. Now the dove have already roosted. In front of where I'm hearing these sounds, the dove are flying out of the trees like crazy. All the birds and doves are flying out. I can feel the vibrations in the side by side, but I'm at least 50 yards or more away from where this is coming from. How can I feel this? I don't understand how I can feel this or hear this at that distance. I got the feeling that I need to leave. I shouldn't be there. It does not want me there. Now, I never was in fear. I never was scared for my life, but it was letting me know that I shouldn't be there. I waited and waited, and as he got on the trail right behind the big hill, there were two huge trees on each side of it. They were 40 to 50 foot tall. It started pushing both of those trees on each side of the trail at the same time. And I have no idea what could do that. It would have to be some kind of a front end loader that's hitting a tree to make it shake as much as it was. But it was happening on both sides. All of a sudden that stops, it starts walking again, and it gets louder, and I can feel the vibrations. And I'm just thinking about it. Nobody knows I'm over here. I don't have any weapons. I never carry them with me. Maybe I shouldn't be there. And I went ahead and left. But this is one thing that happened that helped me figure out about when the babies were born. A week later, down by the creek, I saw a little baby footprint 4 inches long in the sand coming out of the creek. I said, that's it. The big male was here. He did not want me there because he was protecting the family while the mom was taking care of the baby. The big male was making food, getting food for everybody and protecting them while he's there, while she's taking care of the baby because she's busy with the newborn. I said, that's crazy. But I learned something. And I've learned something from everything they've done. I learned more from the interactions than I do from the sightings, even though I do learn a lot from their sightings. The juveniles at the nursery, the babies at the nursery, I can't talk today. Dang, this water must have too much ice in it.
No, you're
The
doing great.
babies at the nursery would be there for 8 to 10 months, and then they would be gone. And I know that the original mom would come pick them up because one mom had twins. And I saw her print with them as she dropped them off. And then I saw her print leaving, and they never were there again. And her print was 17 inches long and about 9 inches wide. So she took them off. But it was crazy, all the stuff I've learned. Just like the original thing of them letting us know that they were here. They had been watching us for a long time. They evidently thought that I knew they were here by me looking at all the stuff they were doing. And then I put a Bigfoot cutout in the backyard. So I think that they realized that we would be a family group that they would want to coexist with and wanted to let us know they were there because they've been watching us for several years. And so I realized that we have been being watched all along, but yet they're so stealthy. I never saw any footprints. They were hiding them from me. But yet, after we started building up a relationship, they didn't hide them anymore. And so I knew that they were doing that on purpose. They were hiding their prints on purpose. They do not want you to know they're there. But yet, when you build up the relationship, they don't care anymore. So I've learned so much from the interactions with them. Now, I think I've gone through the third sighting. The fourth one was really unique because it was a baby. As I'm going across the creek to the other side, which they think the other side that was blocked by those three huge logs, they think that is their part of the territory, which there's areas I do not go in because I know where they're staying by the sounds I'm hearing, and I leave that alone. If I don't want them looking in my window, I'm not going to go in their bedroom and bother them either. That's the respect that we've shown to leave them in their area and not bother them. But as I'm crossing the creek, I smell the smell of a Bigfoot. And after this, I'll get into the smell of the Bigfoot. That's very unique too. But streams will make their own vapor trail. It pulls the wind with it. So I'm smelling the smell of a Bigfoot. I go up, I don't see it. So I drift back into the creek, I smell it again. I pull up, I don't see it. I drift back and I smell it again. Now, right before that, I'd put some stuff out at the gifting station. As I pull up on top of the hill in a little opening about 10 yards away, I see something that is positioned like a rabbit squatting on the ground. Its butt on the ground, squatting. And my mind is telling me it's a rabbit. But my logic is telling me there's no way it's a rabbit. That rabbit, if it stood up, is going to be 3.5 foot tall. Not only that, but it's just too big to be a rabbit. It never looked at me. It was looking uphill towards where I know that the mom usually stays. So I start doing the trust and verify stuff, even against my own self. I start looking for a tail. I can't see a tail because it's sitting on it, if it was on it. Then I start looking for the ears of a rabbit. There it was. It had ears on the side of its head. This was not a rabbit. This was a baby Bigfoot. What was very unique about it, the ears were smaller than our ears are. Their ears on this one was flatter than our ears are and a little bit lower. Now, I don't know if they're all like that, but this one was like that. And I don't know if it's because of the shape of the head is a little bit different, but that was very unique to me because the ears were different. And if you look at all the recreations of witness accounts, you hardly ever see ears. And humans, you can see our ears on some of us when people are doing pictures, but you hardly ever see that on any witness drawings. So it makes me to believe that their ears are flatter on the Bigfoot. That's why when the hair goes over it, you don't see it. So that was kind of unique. It goes along with the pictures I'm seeing. But then it took off. And it's extremely fast. And when it took off, I knew it was not a rabbit. It moved like a chimpanzee. It did not move like a rabbit at all. And it went straight uphill to where the mom stays. And then I realized what had happened. I put some stuff out at the gifting station, and they can tell when I'm down there because they can hear the side by side go down there. I always turn it off. And then I turn it back on when after I get done. And I usually don't go to the pond, but this time I was going to the pond. Well, this little one was hungry and wanted to get some of the food that it likes. It was going on a trail and going to cross a creek to go to the gifting station to get something to eat with the mom. And it never looked at me. It was looking uphill, and I believe that it was looking at the mom. And finally, when the mom knew that I had figured out what it was, it told it, go ahead and leave. And it went straight up to her. That was the fourth one that I know 100% was a Bigfoot. But as you can see, each one of them, I learned something different. And the color of that one was kind of weird too. It was a dark brown, but had some mixture of some black hairs in it also. So it was, that part of it was weird because it had two different colors in it. So getting back to the smells, something that we've learned about the smells, I've smelled the smells about 6 times. All of them were at the beginning, and then this one came a little bit after that. So the first time I smelled the Bigfoot, there were 2 of them down at the pond behind 2 hills. And there was one at behind one hill that smelled like a skunk roadkill mixture. The one behind the other hill smelled like a wet dog roadkill mixture. It was totally different, but yet I'd smelled the stuff before, and I got the feeling that there was one behind each one. I was going to sneak up and look at them, and then I got the feeling that they didn't want me to look at them. So I just stopped. I didn't do it. On the way out, I smelled the smell again on the trail that goes by the road that we drive out on, the little trail we drive out on. Another time, I smelled one that was 100% skunk-like. So every smell that I've smelled is a combination of skunk, roadkill, wet dog, or just one or the other. So I thought that was crazy. Then in the beginning, I had smelled it several times, and I'd come up with a theory that they were doing that so that they let me know that they're there. And then I put that in a post. And then all of a sudden, I had a guy respond to it, and it said that it believed that they can emit the smell, and they do it when they're either under stress or anxious. So then I refigured my theory. I started going back over all the times I smelled them. And I realized I believe he's right. All the smells were early on. I never felt in fear, but I smelled the smells. But after that, I hadn't smelled them anymore. They got used to me. They knew that I was safe and nothing to worry about. So I believe that he was right. They emit the smells through a gland when they're anxious or in a little bit of fear. So that was very unique to try to figure out about the smells, because that's why some people smell them, some people don't. The other thing is, if you think about it, common sense wise, a deer is keen on their smell. There is no way, if the Bigfoot smelled like that all the time, they would ever be able to sneak up on a deer. There's no way. So there's no way that that smell is there all the time. And the ones that I saw, I never smelled the smell on any of them. So they definitely do not smell that way all the time. Now, can they smell bad if they get dirty or if they get sick with a stomach ailment or something? Possibly. But it doesn't match the smell that I smelled. So there's been a lot of things we've learned, and we've had interactions like crazy. And some things are just crazy. I mean, there's things that they can do that we don't understand. One time at the gifting station, I decided to run a test. I was finding out how they eat things and learning from it. Like, for example, I would put a whole box of peanut butter crackers down there. And it was made by Lance, where it's got the holes in the top so you could see the packs inside of it. Well, what was crazy about it was the way they opened it. They don't open it from the ends like we do. They take the hands down in that opening and rip it back on the side and pull them out the side. Much quicker and easier to do it than doing it through the end. As a matter of fact, I got to admit, I do it that way now because it's much easier. But also, they would pull the wrappers off by grabbing the sides of it and pulling it to the side, but you would rip it open by pulling it from the sides. We would rip it from the ends, but they don't do that. They grab it from the sides and just rip it open. Crazy. I found out that they like dog food because they stole a 35-pound bag of dog food off the back porch. It'd been there a couple of weeks. When I would put dog food in a plastic container, when it got to the bottom, in the little edges at the bottom, it would fill up with crumbs. They would actually lick their fingers and dip it in those crumbs like we would potato chips in a bag, dumping them on a plate, licking their finger and picking them up and eating them. They do the dog food crumbs the same way. I actually found one time where all the crumbs had been tilted to one corner and they licked the four fingers. And you can see the four fingers in it, and you can see all the crumbs were tilted to one corner. And the same guy that makes a lot of the stuff and helps us out, he made sure that that thing was perfectly level, but it had been tipped. And the plastic container it was in was one of the big plastic containers that you put wrapping paper in at Christmas. It holds a 14-pound bag of dog food pretty easy. So there was a lot of things I learned about them. But at one time, I wanted to go put a whole rotisserie chicken out there. I put it in a little container with high sides. I wanted to see how they ate it, what they did with it. So I put it in that container and I wedged it in between other containers. That way I would know if they pulled it or anything else pulled it. Now I did set up the gifting station so it blocked raccoons and stuff from getting up it, with stainless steel around the legs and a cap on the top that they couldn't reach around. Because that's the only other thing that has really flexible fingers to get up on. So I put it in there And I said, I'm going to see how they do this. And it was one of those huge rotisserie chickens, like at Sam's Clubs. It looks like it's a steroid chicken and just huge. My wife had a little Diet Coke bottle. She drinks a little mini Diet Cokes. She had one that was half empty, and she left it down there. I said, well, your Diet Coke's over there. She goes, I'm going to leave it for them and see what they do. Okay. So as we leave, I go back the next day. The rotisserie chicken's gone. I see my wife. She's with me. She's over there looking at something on the ground. And I'm studying it to see if the container was moved any, and it wasn't. I'm looking all around. There's no sightings of anything that hit the ground, no bones. In the woods, there's no bones. They just carried it off and ate it somewhere else. And she's over there picking something off the ground. She said, look at this. I glanced over there and I saw it was her little mini Diet Coke bottle. I said, they asked your Diet Coke bottle. She said, look again. I looked again. Said, yeah, it's your Diet Coke bottle. She said, look closer. I looked. There was nothing in the Diet Coke bottle. It was gone. But the top was still screwed on it. Now, there were no holes in it. There was no tears in it. There's no way it could have got out unless the top would have been taken off and drank, and then the top put back on and then left it on the ground. That was crazy. But that wasn't as crazy as what else happened. So I was telling her about the rotisserie chicken. I said, they just picked up the chicken and took it off and didn't even leave us a bone. I said that about 2 or 3 times. I was astonished because I thought they would eat it next to the gifting station like other animals would do, but there was nothing there. So I kept saying they didn't even leave us a bone. The next Wednesday, when I go down there, something amazing happened. As I'm parked over there beside the gifting station, in between where I park and where that container is, where that chicken is a wing bone broke in half laying on the gifting station in between it for me to see it. It took what I said literally and went and found a bone from it and brought it back so we could have a bone. They're so intelligent and caring that they wanted to make sure they didn't upset us, thought that I was upset because they didn't leave us a bone and went and found one and brought it back and left it for us. How crazy is that? I mean, things like that they've done over and over again. Also, one fall, it was going to be a real cold winter, and I noticed that they were eating more protein. They were eating more of the peanut butter and the dog food than anything else. So I started noticing that. And I said, well, they got the nursery site here. It's going to be a cold winter, they're predicting. So let me put 2 containers of dog food. And I'd actually changed it from a chicken flavor, which they took off our back porch, to a salmon flavored dog food, which they liked much more. This is another thing that they communicated with me. So I went to Walmart. They only had 1 bag of salmon flavored dog food. And then they had several chickens, but I got a chicken. So I got 1 chicken and 1 salmon. I went and put one of the containers had a salmon, 14 pounds of salmon. The other one had 14 pounds of chicken. It's amazing how much they can eat in 2 days. The next day, I'm going to the car to go to work. Beside where I step in, right where I would place my foot, is the empty salmon flavored bag dog food. Now, just to let you know, after I put stuff down there, I go and buy the barn where I park the side by side we have these huge, really tall trash cans, which was empty at the time, and I throw all the trash in it to try to keep the side by side clean. They had reached, opened it up, got out the salmon flavor, put it by my door. And I said, wait a second, this is a message. So I got the idea to go look to verify it. I go down to the gifting station. There, the salmon flavored dog food was 3/4 empty. And you could see where they took a scoopful with a hand of the chicken, and that's the only thing they ate out of it. They were letting me know they want salmon flavored dog food, not the chicken flavored dog food. Again, they're letting me know what they like. I even went back to the trash can, and tried to reach in. I've got long arms and I'm 6'4". It was empty when I put the trash in there. I could not reach the chicken flavor bag of dog food. Crazy. I mean, they are so much smarter and so much more intelligent than anybody gives them credit for. It's unreal. So, I can tell more stories about anything, interactions about anything that you want me to, but I realize we're going a little bit long on this. So I was going to ask, do you have any questions so far?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you for sharing that with me, Neil. Do you have any other eyesight encounters that you want to talk about, or is that all of them?
Well, that's the 4 that I know it's 100%. But let me tell you about 3 that I know that's 90%. Okay. And I'll explain why it's not 100%. And I don't count that as a true sighting, even though I know what it is. So on the gifting station one day, my wife and I are driving down the trail to it, and something is up there. And I told my wife, I said, there's something on the deck of the gifting station. This is when it was a nursery. And she goes, what? I said, there is something on the deck down there. We're about 40 yards away. And you know how a little kid in a playground that's on a platform will slide down feet first to the ground? That's what this thing did. It slid down feet first with its head towards the woods and paused for a minute, was quadruped on all 4 and moving away. The arms and legs were outside the torso and moved weird. It moved spiderish. Not exactly like a spider, but it was weird because the arms and legs were outside the shoulders of the body. Now, if it had been a cat, if it had been a dog or anything else, because this thing would have also been 3.5 foot if it stood up, they would have jumped off of it and gone full speed into the woods. And this thing paused for a second and then went around the corner on a trail that I know they use, because I know I've seen where they've sit on a log down there that's got huge vines going up in a tree so they can make a getaway. And I'm thinking, that had to have been a Bigfoot. There's no other animal that I've ever seen move that way. There's no other animal that doesn't leap off of a platform and go full speed into the woods, but yet this thing slid down to the ground, went to all 4s, and then went around it and went down the trail that I know they use. That was one of them. The next thing I'll tell you is the dogs can pick up on Bigfoot and tell that they're there. They bark every time they're in the backyard. And that's one reason why Bigfoot does not like dogs, because the dogs give them away. One night, we came home late. It was around 11:30 at night. We always leave our windows down So we can see deer in the front field. We got water that sits in the front field. You can hear the frogs. As we get closer to the house, we hear a dog growling on the other side of the creek, like it's about to attack something. Then we hear the squeal of a dog, and it's the most horrifying sound you've ever heard. I can't even talk about this with my wife around. Can't do it. She said, "Don't ever tell that around me again." She pulled off the driveway, had her lights pointing into the woods, honked her horn, and yelled and said, "Stop that." It went silent. It sounded like a dog was being torn apart limb by limb. And then when she said, "Stop that," it broke his neck. We were so horrified by the sound, I had to go check right then, getting home, to make sure all the dogs were okay. And they were. Now, what I did was I went down to the area. There's 2 areas that I communicate with them, and they always get it. I told them, I said, "If you ever hurt our dogs, then our trust is broken. They're part of our family. Do not hurt our dogs, period." And at the time, we had some dogs outside that had the shed that they lived in with a fence around it. And there's a reason for it. It's not because, well, basically, one had gotten injured. It got hit by a car and could not use his back legs, but he could not control going to the bathroom. So we put him and his sister and another one that had always been together out there. So they were out there all together. But one of our sons had a bulldog and another one had a Yorkie. And that was the odd couple. But they got to where they would run every morning down to the gifting station and every evening down to the gifting station. And it would take them a long time to come back. After we told them to not hurt our dogs, we started seeing fingerprints, dirty fingerprints on the bulldog. The bulldog is white, clear fingerprints, like as if he was being petted. Then we found crackers wrappers where it had been ripped open and footprints right by the thing where they had been feeding the dogs crackers. And what's amazing about that is, every year when they had the nursery, one would bring the young ones over there and they would be feeding them like as if they were introducing the new ones to the dogs every year. It was crazy. Now I get back to the other 2 that is 90%. So the Yorkie one day let him out at night, and he went and ran to the edge of the porch, and it smelled. It ran around the pad we have in the back and around a big tree, and it just stopped. And I'm just like, "Cookie, come on in. Cookie, come on in. I'm ready to go to bed." And it really wasn't late enough to go to bed, but I think I probably said, "Come get a treat." But all of a sudden, I see this black monkey looking thing move across the yard, moving like a chimpanzee, and it was behind it. But it wasn't barking, it wasn't chasing it. It was like he was playing catch, like he was trying to catch it. Now, for a long time, I was trying to figure out what kind of injury can something have to make an animal move like a chimpanzee. Never could figure it out. Because at the time, that was the first one I saw that was moving like a chimpanzee. And I just couldn't believe that we would have one of the babies right here in our backyard. And I think that Cookie and them had been going down there playing with the young ones. And that one was wanting to come up and play with Cookie. So it had sneaked up behind that big wide tree And Cookie smelled it and was over there playing with it. So then the next time we had a party, a get together, a family get together going on at the house. We had parked a trailer that we had blocking the side of the dog house in the fence so they wouldn't bark all the time at the people that were there. I'd see Cookie come out from behind it and then run back behind it. I mean, go back behind it so I couldn't see him several times. And everybody had gone. So I was trying to get Cookie to come inside. It's not dark, but it's going to get dark soon. So I'm trying to get him to come in so I can rest a little bit after a long day with people being out there all day. All of a sudden, I see Cookie run out. He looks behind that trailer. All of a sudden, here it goes, the chimpanzee running out. And Cookie's watching it. And after he goes down and runs into the bushes, then Cookie runs into the house as if he was making sure that he could make a getaway safely. It was crazy. And then I realized after I went over there, I found little baby footprints over there where it was standing up next to the fence, maybe petting some of the other dogs or doing something. But I said, that is a baby Bigfoot. And it was solid black also. Now, I don't know if it was the same one as the other, but I realized that it was a Bigfoot. But I can't call it a sighting 100% because if there's an escaped chimpanzee, that would ruin my rule of 100% can't be any other animal. So that's the ones that are 100% and the 3 that are 90%. But it was just funny. Here, they're all black, except for the one that's dark brown with some black in it. At other places, they're different colors. And I don't know if that's genetic or what. I would assume it's genetic.
Yeah, absolutely. They vary in a lot of different colors. And it sounds like you've had a lot of Bigfoot activity on your property, similar to my area. And I thought it was very interesting that you called it a nursery site, and they will pretty much raise the juveniles or the babies there. And yeah, you've had so much activity. Have you ever had a bad experience gifting, or maybe when you stopped? A lot of people mention that if you feed these things and you just all of a sudden stop, it really makes them angry. Have you experienced anything like that?
I have not experienced that, but they have ways of letting me know if they're out of food. And I don't give them food all the time. Yeah, I don't give them food all the time. But they want to be on a set schedule. They would like to have it either on a Saturday or Sunday and one day in the middle of the week and plan on that. Because if I'm later than that, they do things to let me know that they're out of food. We have a black tripod deer feeder that we don't use anymore that's out there by the road in a field that will knock it over. And I'll go, they're out of food again. And we're off the pattern. Or they'll push down. We've got bird feeders out there in the backyard that we have made pipes with that is screwed to concrete blocks, and we hang them on it. They will push it over to let us know we're out of food again. But they only would do it whenever the pattern was off, and it has to be off by several days. You know, like if I skip a Wednesday and it gets to a Friday or something like that. But they've never hit the house. They've never growled. They've never done anything like that. Now, I can tell you they patterned us so good that when we go on vacation, I will let them know we're going on vacation and we'll be gone for a week. Now, I'll try to put extra stuff out, but it won't last the whole time. They don't do anything then. because they know either by me telling them or know by seeing us pack up, getting in the car, and driving off. They know they're not going to get anything until my car comes back. Not only that, but they patterned us so much that they know when I'm getting bags out of my car, carrying them inside, they know that I've got something for them in that car that I leave in there. Many times they'll go to the edge of my car, look in the windows to see what's in there for them. They never once have broken anything. I've seen handprints on the top of the car, but they've never broken it or tried to get into it to get the stuff. Because I told them when I started seeing the footprints, I said, make sure you don't do anything to the car. And they hadn't, but they do go look in the window, especially after I go and take stuff in the house because they know they have something there. They pattern you like crazy.
Yeah, that's insane. And whenever I encountered the juvenile, actually two different juveniles, one was a little one. I mean, people can consider this one a toddler. And another one was probably like a teenage Sasquatch. That was actually my very first encounter, but they both moved through the woods like a chimpanzee. And all you saw was this jet black figure moving through the trees. And yeah, I mean, I think that's what you encountered was a Sasquatch. I wouldn't think that it was an escaped chimp. But yeah, it does
Right.
sound like Bigfoot activity, especially with everything that you've experienced there. And it does sound like they like peaches and persimmons. And I've heard that a lot from people as well, that they'll go out to their fruit trees and every bit of it is picked completely clean. So that does sound like them. Do you think that they like the blue marbles? Like specifically blue?
I think they like the blue color.
Mhm.
I put different things out for them and they take it and play with it. Like if I put cereal out for them, they would sometimes have the little creatures in it the kids play with. They'll take them and play with them, but they'll play with them on the edge of the woods and leave them there for a few days before they disappear. And they're different colors. They could be orange or black or different colors. But when I do put the blue, it's taken and gone. Now, I will have to say that I know that they can read my thoughts. I know that sounds weird, but I've actually run tests on it and proved it. And think about this. When I put the marbles down there as a gift, they took them and they disappeared immediately. When I took the marble plate down there with the same blue marbles on it to try to communicate and interact with them, they never took one of the blue marbles. Never took one. They just interacted with us. I've also got a hanging up blue mineral that is round, but it's got a hole in the middle, and I've got it tied up down there to the gifting station for them to play with it, hit it on one side and have it spin. And I let them know that I was putting that down there for them to play with when they're down there. They've never taken it. It's been there over 2 years. So if they're not reading my thoughts of what it's there for, why wouldn't they have taken that blue marbles? Why wouldn't they taken that blue mineral off of the gifting station? I've been driving down the hill and seen it with no wind, seen it spinning like crazy. Then I actually started running tests. I would go down there, and this was over a 6-month period. I would go down there and I would say, if one of you are down here, give me a tree knot. All of a sudden, I hear a tree knot. Then a few weeks later, I would go be in the backyard of the house. I would say, if any of y'all are around and can hear me, make a vocalization. I would hear whoop come from the woods. One time I told them something very important because there was a guy that was hunting down there and it was hunting season. I said, this is very important. Don't go through the bottom on, and I told them what side. I said, come through the field to come to our property or you may get shot at. I said, it's very important. Let me know you got the message. I had knocks come from 4 different areas. Crazy. I was 9 for 10 asking them to do a tree knock or vocalization or something, and they immediately responded. Number 10 was kind of stupid, but I thought it was worth it, a chance. I said, if you can hear what I'm saying, I need to win the lottery because y'all eat way too much. So please help me win the next lottery. I know it sounds stupid. I did not win the lottery, so they do not have the ability to do that. But I do understand that they can read my thoughts. That also explains why the fruit would always go missing right when we were going to pick it, because I would always be in the living room saying, we're going to pick the peaches this weekend, and it would always be gone before that weekend because they were reading my thoughts. And they said, hey, we got to get these peaches. They're about to come get some.
Mm-hmm. It does sound like they have the ability to read your mind, and especially how you mentioned that they followed you to different areas. Like you said, you went to your daughter's house and the activity was happening there too. And she even commented saying you brought them here. And I've had the same experiences. Like when I was having activity, it seemed like they followed me from the river to my old house and to where I'm living at now, and also surrounding conservation areas that I would go and bow hunt, because the chances of just running into Bigfoot are very slim. But it seemed like no matter where I went, there they were. They were following me out. They were surrounding me and wood knocking. And in my mind, I was like, man, these things are everywhere. Like, I'm sure big time hunters have Bigfoot stories. If I go and talk to my friend that's hunted for many years, he's going to know exactly what I'm talking about, but they didn't. And it's just like, man, what is going on? It seems like they're following me around. And then I started doing more research and interviewing people, listening to other people's encounters, and they talked about being tagged or marked by these things. And I'm like, wait, what is that? Wow, that's the same thing that's happened to me. And it does seem like they have this knowing, either they're really intelligent, which they are, or there's a supernatural side to it, which I believe that is true as well. What do you think?
I have not got to the supernatural side yet.
Yeah, that's
But
completely understandable.
but I'll tell you one of my thoughts, and it's just a theory. You never really know. That's the reason why there's no experts. But there's people that have the ability to read people's minds. There's people that have the ability to remote view. There's people that have the ability to move coins on a table without touching it. They have the ability to manipulate light in a light bulb without touching anything. And when they've done studies of it, they have figured out those people are able to open up more than 10% of their mind. And the more they're able to open it up and focus, they can cause things to happen. So my thoughts are, what if these have brains bigger than ours, which people say that they do because the size of the head is so much bigger. What if they have mated with people or have learned over time how to focus more attention and open up more of their mind because they're not cluttered as much as ours? What if they've learned how to do that? What if their special ability is just the ability that a few humans have, but they have learned how to do on their own over time? It's possible. I don't know, but that would explain a lot. There's a little kid that's autistic, and the guy that the Survivor Man, I think Les Stroud, I think talked about it. Said, "How is it you can go to this little kid's room that's autistic? He's in there, no windows, one closet that you can see all the walls to. Step out, the mom asks it to disappear. You walk in there and everybody cannot find the kid. It's nowhere in there. You go back out in the hall and said, okay, you proved your point. Go back in there and you're sitting on the bed. How? How does that happen? But if a little kid can do it that's autistic, and some people say that they have autistic abilities, what if they can do the same thing in the woods? What if they can pick up on electronics? Most people that study them know that they can see infrared. I say no, but have done enough with cameras and stuff and not gotten anything from it, or just the edge of one, that most of them won't even use infrared trail cameras now. But the dog food that came off our back porch, they waited 2-3 weeks to take it off our back porch. And I thought I had them. I said, I got them. I got a camera on the back porch and one on the showing our cars that they would have had to move to go to it. When I go to pull up the cameras, the batteries in both of them were dead. And it was within 48 hours of them going dead and me realizing that 35-pound bag of dog food was gone. I really think it probably happened the next night. I think they have a way of picking up on the frequency of the electronics, because those were not, didn't have infrared. But they had some way of picking it up. So they knew it was dead to go on the back porch and get that 35-pound bag of dog food. And yes, they did leave me a gift for the bag, but they left huge poops. The only way I can describe it, for about a week near everywhere we go, as if to say, here's you some live fertilizer for the dog food. But they had a way of knowing that those batteries were dead, or they drained them themselves. But they knew that they were dead before they took it off the back porch, because it had been there long enough. They could have done it any time if they didn't know. So it's things like that that we've learned from the interactions, that abilities that they have that we can't understand. We can't pick up on it. We can't see infrared, but apparently they know. So just imagine if they have one ability to where they can make themselves where you can't see them, or translucent, or if they can pick up on electronics. Every person that hunts is going to have a watch, a GPS, something electronic on them. Let's say they can pick up on that. Let's say they can pick up on all the stuff going on in the woods. If they just have one of those abilities, a person hadn't got a chance of seeing them because we're noisy going through the woods. They can go around you anytime they want to and you wouldn't see them. Let's say there's a whole army of people. Let's say they can make themselves translucent. Go up in a high tree, make themselves translucent. You can walk right underneath it, look up, and you'd never see them. If they even have one of those, you ain't got a chance of seeing them. So it's crazy when you start putting all this stuff together that they have or appear to have the ability to do. I don't know, people say, well, you can't prove it. Well, I can prove what happened. I can't prove that they did it. I don't know how anybody would ever prove that they did it, unless you had one that would talk to you and open up and then take a test showing they're telling the truth, which that's not going to happen. So that's what I'm saying. They just have unique abilities that to us, me and you and other normal people, think is supernatural, but it may not be. It may just be they have found a way to focus in ways we have not been able to do to cause things to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with you. And did it seem like they like the peanut butter out of everything that you've tried to gift them as far as food?
No,
What do they like the most?
Nutter Butters.
Okay. Yeah, everyone
By
likes Nutter
far,
Butters.
Nutter Butters. At first, it was graham crackers. But when I started putting Nutter Butters out there, they actually made hides across the creek from the gifting station. So the little ones would be close by, and I would actually hear them walking up to the other side of the creek to be close to it so they could come over there and get them. And I know it's the Nutter Butters because they didn't make the hides until I started putting the Nutter Butters out there. Not only that, but when they do the nursery, they weren't clean. They would drop their trash. But you don't find the Nutter Butters. They carry the Nutter Butters off. They carry it with them. They don't eat it nearby. They eat the peanut butter crackers. Now I can tell you that the first 20 to 40 peanut butter jars, they would leave the lid since it was either a blue or red color, whether it was crunchy or creamy, and they would take the label off and they would just carry the jar with them with the dark tan color of the peanut butter because it was easy to hide. The blue or the red, the other label would stand out. The only ones I've found in the woods have been found next to the creek where there's a trail that goes down where I believe they either cross or drink out of. I have found the only peanut butter jars I found have been on the top of the banks there. So I think they're using them as drinking cups. Can I prove it? No. But it's just weird that they take them off. I found none in the woods except on the edge of those creeks where they're going down, where they have a trail going down to the creek. But Nutter Butters are by far their favorite.
Okay. I appreciate you for sharing that with me. And I've also heard that they like fig bars, or I think that's what it's called, fig Newtons. I can't
Fig
remember.
Newtons?
Yeah.
Fig Newtons.
Uh-huh.
I've never tried the Fig Newtons.
Yeah, you ought to give it a try. And yeah, I do agree with you that you have to be consistent with feeding these creatures. And of course, people call it gifting. But I've heard that from many researchers that you want to pick like an area and find like a gifting stump or hang a bucket off of a limb to keep other creatures out. But you want to go back on the same day, the same time, and like build up this consistency throughout time. And you want to earn their trust. And I've even heard of people, even here in Missouri, where they do this and they go out there and the Sasquatch is pretty much standing by the gifting site. There was a researcher and a whole group of people that claim that they were gifting these things, and the researcher went out there and camped, and he said the Sasquatch came out, picked up the apples, and walked off. And as he was walking off, he kind of nodded his head at the researcher. And I mean, everyone there claims that it happened, and I don't think anyone would lie.
I'm not surprised.
Mhm.
I've heard them many times coming down out of trees or walking to me when I'm putting stuff out to make sure they get to it. Now, they stop far enough away that I can't see them. And I kind of know that they don't want me sprinting towards them to see them. So I don't. I figure at some point in time, there's going to be a young one that grows up has grown up around us, and it'll start showing itself to me. Has it done it yet? No, but I always hope and think it will sometime. I think the male sets the rules of the family, and the male, what that says goes, is what happens. So I think this male that lives here does not want them to be seen or taken pictures of. I also know that there are some places where they have bad interactions with Bigfoot. I wouldn't say aggressive, but where they try to get you to leave by putting limbs over the road, growling at you, all that stuff. But when they tell the story of their family that had that property before, they were trying to shoot and kill them and injure them. So I think that if the male had a bad interaction with humans, that would be the ones that don't want you in the area. These evidently have not had that type interaction. I think if they had had that type interaction, we wouldn't be where we are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And why do you think the Sasquatch were so interested in your property in particular?
I have a theory that I don't tell anybody, but the streams, the way they are, and the banks, deep as they are, makes as a blockade for people. People aren't going to go. Let's say you're a deer hunter and you got an area that's surrounded by two creeks, and the creeks have banks that are 10 or 12 inches, 10 or 12 feet deep. And the other end is nothing but a swamp or brush that is so thick you can't walk through. People aren't going to try to go deer hunting in there because even if they kill a deer, they're going to have to go 10 to 12 feet down the bank and 10 to 12 feet up the other bank. No, they're not going to do that. They're not going to hunt there. So they have a barrier, a natural barrier here that keeps people out of it. We have the only trail that goes into that area. So I think they've lived here for so long. Now, it does make me question the reason it was abandoned 8 to 10 years. Did they have interactions with them that were negative and they got scared off? I don't know. I've tried to call the person that lived here and he will not take my phone call. So I don't know. But were they run off and just they chose us to be one to interact with? I can't answer that, but it does make sense. And I'll tell you, most of the time, they will keep a barrier. I've seen a lot of shapes in the woods. I've seen a lot of them in trees watching, but I don't call them sightings because they don't match my parameters. And I don't run to go see them. I do that because I'm respecting their privacy as they do ours. But they always have a barrier in between us, either on the other side of the creek or at a distance. There's no way I can catch it. And I don't carry guns around. So they leave themselves an out so they can get away from us, either a barrier or far enough distance that there's no way we can catch them.
Yeah, absolutely. And the footsteps that you heard, that reminds me of Jurassic Park when the T-Rex is coming from a distance and you can hear boom, boom.
And the birds
Yeah, and the
taking out
birds.
out of the trees.
Yeah, that's wild. And that's a sign that a big predator is on its way.
Yeah, but if you think about it, Bigfoot has not got a way to tell people to leave. The way they get people to leave out of an area, either because they have a young or a kill or where they stay, is to scare people out by throwing things near them, by a growl, by breaking a branch, by pushing a tree over. They have different ways of getting your attention, and they'll even pace you out. They don't they don't walk a lot of times behind you. One might that you don't hear, but it's usually from the side. But they're guiding you, and it's amazing how many people have been lost, and they hear one to the side, and they just keep going, and they end up at their car where they parked originally, but they're not on the trail they're on, but they end up at their car. They're being escorted out of the territory. So I think the reason why they get such a bad rap is because the only way they have to get you to leave their area is to scare us out of their area. It's not that they're going to be trying to kill us or anything. They want us to leave their area. And if you think about it, Bigfoot is a ambush predator. I've heard them hunting. I've heard them pushing heads, going through there, making noise, and then the deer getting grabbed at the end of a trail where they're escaping, trying to get away. If Bigfoot wanted to kill a human is no match. Even if you had a big gun, they would be able to sneak up on you, grab you. The only thing you would hear is one or two steps before it gets you. So they're not trying to kill you. They're trying to get you to leave their area. Because if they wanted to kill you, they could. We have no match for their strength, speed, senses, and what's going on around them in the woods.
Yeah, I agree with you. And they use intimidation, and they're very territorial. And yeah, a lot of times people run into these things and they never want to go into the woods again. But like you said, you've had many interactions with these creatures and they've never once tried to hurt you.
No, I don't even carry a gun. I carry one of those little 9-piece knives in case I needed to cut some rope or stuff like that. But there's pretty much nothing in the woods I'm not afraid of. I mean, that I'm afraid of. But yet I know if I ever had an interaction with them, I'm at their mercy. And I trust them enough to know that they're not going to do anything to me. They actually have protected us from things. And I'll tell you another quick story. And I know we're running long on this, but me and a relative of ours and her friend went to the pond one day to feed the fish. And in the distance, we could hear the a storm coming. But yet, the wind is blowing towards it. And we couldn't see it where we were, and it was still sunshine in here. But we go to the pond. All of a sudden, we're at the pond feeding the fish, and I hear lightning strike probably a couple of miles from us. All of a sudden, a branch breaks 25 yards from us up in a tree. And it's done by them. It's not a normal break. And I never did get to explain how they do that, but I can tell the difference. The relative of ours jerked her head and looked. I jerked her head and looked. I said, we got to go. Let's go right now. And they said, are we in danger? I said, yeah, but not what you think. They just let me know we need to leave now because a storm or lightning is about to hit right here. And we need to leave now so we don't get hit by it. So we jump in the side by side. We're leaving, going to the house. Now, both of them said they heard lightning strike at the pond near where we were. I didn't hear it, so I can't confirm that. Put the side by side in the barn. As soon as we walk in the door, a hailstorm hit with tremendous wind like crazy. We weren't 2 steps in the door. If we had not left when we did, we would have been caught in that. It was crazy. But it happened. Me and 2 other people witnessed it. Now, did they put the idea in my head about the storm? Or was I knowing that with lightning there could be a storm? I can't answer that, but I got the feeling that they placed that into my head to let me know we need to leave right then. Because they know we don't like bad weather. We don't go out in the weather to put stuff out for them or to do stuff because we don't hunt and stuff like that. So they know we don't like the bad weather. So it was warning us that we need to leave right then. And we did. And we were 2 steps in the house. We would have waited 1 minute more, we'd have been caught in it. And that's happened more than once.
Yeah, I've heard of them protecting people from danger, and it does sound like they aren't out there to hurt people necessarily. Maybe there are bad clans, and I'm sure there are, but in most cases, they're just trying to get people out of their area, and if people get in danger, they are known to save other people.
Yeah, now there are bad ones, don't get me wrong, but I think the ones that are really bad are deep, deep, deep in the forest because they want to be as far away from people as they can. But in the national parks, they got vast areas and they have trails going all through it. If you get in the wrong spot and you're by yourself, could be a problem. I've not heard of anybody being taken that's in a group. It seems like if anybody disappears, it's somebody that has separated himself from the group and is by itself. So I always tell people, if you're in an area you don't know about, make sure there's at least 2 of you. Night or day, make sure there's at least 2 of you. Don't go by yourself because you don't know what's in that area. I think there's very few bad ones, but it only takes 1 to kill you. So I always tell people more than 1 person to a group.
Yeah, I would agree. And it seems like the dangerous Sasquatch are found in huge forest. And I think that's why they want to stay away from people. They don't interact with people very often. And you often hear these positive encounters where these creatures are coming up to people's houses. So it seems like they're accustomed to people, and they want to be around people. For some reason, they want to observe us. They want to interact with us and possibly get into our trash cans or steal fruit from the fruit trees, things like that. And yeah, it's definitely hard to say, but yeah, there's certainly good ones and bad ones out there.
Right.
Okay. Well, I think we are getting towards the end of the podcast. I would love to continue speaking with you, but unfortunately, I'm running out of time. Maybe we can meet up again in the future and possibly do a part 2 and continue talking about all these experiences and your theories regarding the Sasquatch.
Oh, I'd love to. Like I said, I've got hours and hours of these interactions with them, and every one I've learned something from. So I'd love to share more with people and tell the things that I've learned from them.
Okay.
Now, that just because I've learned them does not mean that they're different at other places.
Mm-hmm.
It really applies to this clan, but I have heard a lot of the stuff I'm seeing is the same in other places, like the male not being there all the time and stuff like that. But I always tell people this is what I'm learning from this clan specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds a lot like the activity that I've experienced here at my place. So I definitely want to learn more about what you've experienced, your methods, and how you go about interacting with these creatures. So yeah, let's definitely meet back up again in the future, and we'll talk about everything and continue where we left off.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay, Neil. Well, I appreciate the time that you took today to talk about all this, and it really means a lot to me.
All right. I hope you have a great week.
Yeah, you too. And I will be in touch with you here in the near future. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. You take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Neil, thank you for taking the time to come on Sasquatch Theory and share your experiences with everybody in the public. Encounters that span years are rare, and hearing how your understanding evolved over time makes this a fascinating conversation. Whether someone agrees with your conclusions or not, your willingness to carefully document what happened on your property gives people plenty to think about. To everyone listening, if you've experienced something unusual in the woods, a sighting, a strange vocalization, footprints, tree structures, or activity around your home, I would love to hear your story. You can contact me anytime at sasquatchtheory@outlook.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share this podcast with someone who enjoys Bigfoot and cryptid research. Every report helps us better understand what may be happening in forests across North America. Until next time, stay safe, keep an open mind, and I'll see you on the next episode of Sasquatch Theory.